And I know Josh has a planning board meeting this evening. I don't see Jack on, not you, Jack, our Jack.
Jack's on. Jack's on.
Jack Ludwig is on?
Yeah, but I don't see my video. I don't know why.
Oh, there you are. Now I see your box.
Okay, but you don't see any video, right?
No, I don't.
Well, I can't explain why.
If you could you'd be an IT guy.
Yeah, that's right. According to my the feedback I'm getting is my video is supposed to be on, but for some reason it isn't. So, well, you're not missing anything by not seeing my face. I'll have to.
All right. Well, aside from Josh, Rob, Bill, Amy, Colette, everybody else is here. So why don't we go ahead and call the meeting, the Town of Brookfield. You ready, Catherine?
I'm ready, yeah.
All right. So call to order Town of Brookfield Municipal Building Committee, regular meeting Tuesday, January 19th. And, Happy New Year. I'm going to kind of piggyback on Colette's Happy New Year, say it as many times as we can, as long as we can. Hopefully it'll be, we're headed back into better days now. And with that, we do have an exciting couple of weeks coming up for Dave and Laurel, as the bids are going to start rolling in this week. We have bids due, I believe, on the 22nd, Laurel, correct? You're on mute.
Sorry, the 21st, Thursday. We have our 3 bids due this Thursday.
Yep, and then followed by
One bid next Tuesday, which is site work, and then everybody else is coming in next Thursday, the 28th.
right. So hopefully, in the next 2 weeks, we'll have an idea where the financials on this project stands, and we may need to convene a special meeting. So I just want to alert everybody to that if we have favorable bids and we have the blessing of the Board of Finance and First Selectman, we'll make those recommendations and forward them on so we can get this show on the road. But with that, item number 2 is an approval of the December 15th, 2020 minutes.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval?
Aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions? All right, hearing none, we're on to our new school project update. Again, we gave a quick overview with Laurel and Dave at the beginning, but I'm going to turn it over to Tecton at this point to see. Oh, Jack, we can see you.
Hey, Jack, how are you? Jack, you're muted.
So to see if Tecton has any updates on the bid phase at this juncture.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. There's not an awful lot to really tell you. As was said, the bids are going to be due. We've been receiving RFIs, requests for information, over the past few weeks. We've been responding to those. ONG has had a log online that they have kept, and we've been providing answers. And it's been kind of a running thing where the responses have been included in the addenda, which are revised documents that go out to the bidders. The final addendum will go out. The design team will issue to ONG by the end of the day tomorrow, and ONG will be putting out the following day on Thursday. And that'll be the last changes we make to the documents before the bids come in. So it's really about it right now.
All right, Jeff, you have anything to add?
No, I think Eddie summarized it just well. We've been working hard at getting those RFIs responded to, and issuing sketches for clarification. So hopefully that provides good information in the bidders for tight bids. So
Great. We hope the market's good to all of us and that we have a successful bid project. So Arcadis, Mr. Butkus, do you have anything else on the bid phase?
Nothing beyond what's already been said. Everything's consistent. Jack, for some reason, I think you're in charge of the screen, and I'd like to share.
Okay.
Okay.
So Jack Butkus, if we want to go on to Everybody received in the packet the Multivista proposal.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Now, while we don't need to take any action on that this evening, I wanted to include it. So everybody, if anybody had any questions about it, we can have an open discussion about it right now. Jack, you want to give us any highlights that you know about the proposal?
Yes, we've used Multivista a number of times over the last decade or so. I'm not sure how long that they've been in business, but their services have been something that our private clients, or I should say our individual municipalities, have exercised the opportunity to use. We've also seen them used on our state of Connecticut projects as well. And as David presented at last month's meeting, the ability to capture things photographically and then have it all keyed into something that becomes a very useful how to get there map of the project, either for individual shots or for the progressions, can be a good resource as we look to solve problems and even as a facilities management tool in the future. The proposals that we received, there were two independent proposals. One was for the webcam, and the other is for the overall suite of individual sets of photo surveys. We can start with pre-construction site surveys. We can do the exterior and interior progressions throughout the life of the project. Additional shots right before we close the walls for MEP systems to get things that are more direct on shots, detail shots, etc. All of these items in both of these proposals that were provided to you are essentially an a la carte menu. And we can go through them when you're ready to consider exercising the option to do or not to do, and choose the services that you are looking to add to the portfolio of information to document the project. The pardon me. As I said, all of these services are kind of additive. While they're there doing one series of shots, they can do these others if you so choose. They also have a service that we don't need in this particular instance, where they can do a laser scan of an existing building in order to create an as-built map. Either once we did partial demo, clean the ceilings out and whatnot, and wanted to capture the actual conditions, or if we were starting with an existing building to renovate. But again, these services are there for the picking and choosing, essentially, to the level of detail that you feel would be useful to the town. And if there are any other questions you have now that you've seen the numbers, I'd be happy to do my best to discuss it with you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Paul.
Yeah, Bill.
Once all the cameras and equipment is installed on the project, who's responsible for the equipment? Like, say if it gets hit and gets damaged by someone, or something happens where it gets completely annihilated, which is a possibility. Who's responsible for all that?
I would have to look into the the language of the agreement. Typically, if we have someone on a job site damage some other contractor's property, the damager is responsible to make right for the damagee. I would think that would be similar here, in that you, the town, are not actively doing work on the site. It would be other contractors, that we would be able to find a culpable party if something were to happen. The only equipment that would remain on site, if you chose to have a webcam, it would be the webcam material itself. All of the other site progression photos are done manually. Those are not cameras that are fixed on site, that somebody that comes to visit the site and returns to the same locations regularly, inside and outside the building, in order to capture the progress.
Okay.
When I looked through the both the proposals for the webcam and the construction documentation, I was going to reach out, if it's okay with everybody, to the district, because as far as the webcam, there's a lot of stuff in there that we may not need, such as the cellular hosting, things like that. We have an existing building that I think that the district may be able to set up a webcam on and a platform for town viewing and town use. Since their proposal for the webcam really amounted to, we'll drop you off some equipment, you guys have to install it, and then we'll come out and maintain it and host a web platform. I don't know that I'm seeing a great value out of that for somebody else to do. I just want to see if it's more financially feasible for the district to do in-house with Eric. So on the other service, you know, I'm kind of still struggling with the a la carte menu to see where there would be value added and at what, you know, where we kind of draw that line. And I guess that's where I'm looking with everybody else to kind of opine and chime in on, is there a line there that we see that there's a value added before it becomes too expensive to spend this money?
Hey, Paul, can I say something?
Sure.
The project I just finished, Oxford, they went with the X-ray, what they call the X-ray item on the menu for Multivista, and it came out to be very beneficial for the job. So basically, at certain intervals of the construction, I would call them and schedule Multivista to come into the site and take pictures of the walls before we close them.
Right.
So you can see all the rough-in, where the pipes are, where the electrical is. So I didn't know that this was going to be presented tonight, but if the committee wants at another meeting, I can certainly show you the platform that was accomplished for Oxford, and you can see if and make a decision if it's beneficial for your case.
Yeah, I think, Gus, that would be helpful. Like we said at the beginning of this, we don't need to make a decision tonight. We have the benefit of, you know, some time. It's not like we're pouring concrete and setting steel tomorrow. So I'd like everybody to kind of take their time and go through this a la carte menu and understand everything we're getting. And Jack, the one question I do have would be, Multivista is a platform. What happens if they go belly up? Is this a standalone thing that 15 years from now or 20 years from now, somebody can have on their computer and still access the maps with the photos and the interactive nature of it? Or do we have to do that through the Multivista platform? And if that platform no longer exists, how do we access that data in the future?
You have the best of both worlds. You have, at the end of the project, a data set that's turned over to you, whether it's a external hard drive or some other sort of data device that will be turned over to the town, on which all of this, including the ability to fly around the building and go to the various points, you know, the same level of interaction that you would have on their platform through their website,
Okay.
provided to you on this hard drive.
So it would be a self-contained item that somebody can apparently run at any time in the future, regardless of whether that platform exists online or not.
Correct. And in the meantime, as long as they do exist, it may be more convenient for some folks just to log into the project ID and, look at it, over the web, rather than having to find, wherever the town decides to upload that information into a town device. So you have the best of both worlds.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Does anybody else have any questions on the
Yeah, I had a question though, Paul. Is any of this proposal, is this work overlapping with something that's going to be done by the other participants? Like, for example, a construction manager, is he going to do project documentation as well? I know when I was with Fusco, we did document the project periodically. It seems like it's repetitive to what we're doing right here. And if that is the case, can we combine the two tasks?
You bring up a great point, and that was on one of my to-do lists, was to go through O&G's proposal and their contract to see if there's any duplication of services, and how the two may mesh together. You're absolutely right. I mean, look, when it comes down to as-built, we all know that both the contractor, construction manager, however it's set in O&G's contract with their subs, are responsible for performing as-built and doing as-built drawings and documentation. So, and I saw that as one of the as one of the options on the a la carte menu. So that's what triggered that very same thought that you had, is where is there any overlap, and can we just integrate the two together? And I guess that would be a question for O&G and for us as well to do due diligence and review that.
Yeah, and Paul, this is Dave. I can confirm that with the contract as well. Again, unless there was specific language modified in our contract here about it, and typically it does talk about documenting progress, which is, we do that. Our monthly reports will contain photos throughout the month of what had happened. I think Gus is pretty good about taking photos from similar vantage points. The difference there is like what Multivista does is it's so contextual, and that it's all keyed in to an interactive plan. That's kind of that next step above, as far as knowing exactly where and from what vantage point that photo was taken, and being able to see it through the timeline of the project from that same exact vantage point by essentially a professional photographer with a digital SLR camera, or a 360 camera in this case.
Now, another aspect that was shared with us at the presentation was that Multivista have now provided a capability that any of us, other participants on the project, can upload information into their database and pin it, so that if we did have a particular instance, something we saw the day after Multivista was there for their progress shot, and there was something unusual that we spotted and we wanted to document it, for instance, we could upload that image to the file and pin it to the plan, and that also would be traceable just like the photos that they take. So that gives you a little extra flexibility.
Yeah, that's what they did for Oxford. By just selecting one of the items on their menu, they open up their platform for my use and the use of all our construction team. So even the folks from Tecton, owners rep, they all had accounts on the platform, and we were all able to upload our pictures. So it kind of complemented what we were supposed to already do by providing our progress photos, because we were able to organize them by location and by date. So it's very helpful.
Is there somebody in the Oxford School District that we can talk to? And it's easy to look at it from the architect and the CM side, but we kind of want to look at it from the owner side. What's the owner value?
Sure.
We do it on our own projects, and we find it to be a great value. We just want to know from the owner side, can it be a value to us?
Yeah, the director of facilities, George Renzoni. I'll send you his contact, Paul.
All right, I would
So you
appreciate
can
that.
call him
Thanks.
too. Yep.
All right, any other questions on the Multivista proposal? All right, at this point, Jack, can you give us the review of the material testing services RFP, or the draft
Yeah,
RFP?
we are on the cusp of being able to hit the street with our request for testing and inspection services. As I shared with the committee, we've got the draft RFP, which will also have attached to it the certificate of special inspections, which comes from the structural engineer. So that defines, from a designer's standpoint, all of the various aspects of the project that have either a testing requirement or some sort of physical testing, physical inspection, say welds on steel, that are physically tested in the field rather than sent to a lab. There's also, as part of this, and this little info bar is right in my way. We also have a bid form for them. I've developed this form over several projects, and it just went through another revision to add a couple of areas that we found were a little bit light based on some testing on a recent project. Again, this also provides us a menu of full day and half day costs for inspection. There are prices, for individual tests like concrete compression tests and mortar and things like that, which will be a per each price. And it may turn out that we don't need all of these, but we'll get pricing up front and we can compare among the various respondents. Interestingly enough, we've gotten quite a bit of interest from testing labs in the area and across the state that want to compete for this work. So I think we'll get some some good participation and hopefully even better pricing. But if there are any questions on either the scope of the testing or how it's put together or any particulars of the RFP, I'd be happy to answer them.
So, I mean, this is basically going to come down to unit price. I mean, proposers' recommended quantity is very subjective along with that extension. So it's really going to come down to a unit price. So how does the owner determine, say, if you have one lab who is less expensive in soils, but another lab who's less expensive in concrete? How do we make the determination about feasibility, scope, and who's going to be more competitive?
Well, this is a combined qualifications and pricing submission. So first of all, they have to pass the threshold of having all the right licenses from the state and being certified for the tests, which I don't see as a big hurdle. I think we have plenty of qualified people here. When we get into that category of, I'm more expensive on this, but you're more expensive on that, that's where the tool of the recommended quantities will come in. We've told them how large the building is. We've told them the type of construction it's going to be so that they can, anticipate, from the types of materials we're using, the level of activity that they would need out there. And then we can look at it from a perspective of, yes, I'm more expensive on asphalt tests, but there's only 20 of those. You're more expensive on concrete, but knowing the type of structure we're going to build, there are going to be, multitudes more tests in concrete, and maybe then we use that as a weighted decision as far as who's more competitive overall. So again, everybody's recommended quantities are going to be, what they dream up, not something that we've given to them, but it does create kind of a relative ranking that we can use in order to approximate best value. It's not an exact science, but it does give us a good feel.
Right.
And if there's no objection by the committee, I'd like to get this in the legal notices in the paper on Sunday and hit the street as of Monday.
Does anybody have any more comments for Jack or any objection to Arcadis publishing this?
Sounds reasonable to me.
All right, Jack, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. That's it for this piece of the meeting, and I'll come back in the invoice section.
Okay, so O&G, I know we touched on at the beginning a little bit of Laurel's thunder, but Laurel, do you have anything else to add about the bid phase and the timeline, and what particularly do you need from the owner in order to really get this moving once the bids come in?
Well, before I get started, was Gus Cote ever officially introduced to you guys? I know he showed up at last month's meeting, but everybody knows who Gus is, right? He's our project manager. He's going to be taking over from me. So we're in our interface stage where we are working on this project together, as well as Frank Rubino, who's the superintendent, so that when it starts hitting the ground, which is very, very soon, they know exactly what's going on in the project. So I just want to make sure I mention that. So back to the schedule. As was mentioned, yes, we do have bid due dates. I can share a screen, or I don't need to. I could just talk to my own bar chart, whatever you'd prefer me to do. I'm just going to go over just a general time.
Why don't you put the chart up this way everybody has the visual?
Okay, so if everybody can see this, says bid and contract award schedule. We are still tracking some critical items that will impact, the start of construction. These are items that were hangovers from last month. This flood management certification, it's been on everybody's radar. It's being chased down. But this is one of those last remaining items that we're not allowed to really issue a contract until that's resolved. So that date is coming up to February 9th. So I'm tracking it just to make sure that nobody's forgetting about it. We'll be submitting our building permit application soon. And as was mentioned earlier with the bidding, we've got our bidding being finalized next Thursday. As was mentioned, we have the 3 bids coming in this Thursday. Next Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll be doing what's called scope review meetings. So the process is we receive the bids, we then schedule scope review meetings, and sometimes it's the second bidder, sometimes it's a low bidder, sometimes I've done a third bidder. It depends on what the bid results are and who the actual bidders are. If they're people that we're familiar with, And the numbers are fairly close. I don't waste the time of the second bidder. I just usually scope the low bidder. We're going to have the site work bid coming in on next Tuesday. But again, these 4 trade packages, concrete, steel, electrical, and site work, are going to go as a group. We're going to group them together. We're going to scope them together, and I'm going to present them to the building committee together as a package. We need to get these guys going. There are critical path, long lead items, and especially with the site work, there's a lot of work going on to gear up. So I'm going to be coming to the building committee or the board or whoever that is, but our limited notice to proceed magic date is February 10th. We are looking to start on site March 4th. So this gives us time to do our mobilization and the things that we need to do in order to gear up and get ready on site. And one more thing about bidding, just so everybody's aware, there's one particular bid package that we wrote into the bid documents, the contract documents, that they have to hold their price a little longer.
Right.
I think 160 days. So I kind of put that on the schedule just so that we're aware. There's one particular bid package that, may hang out there. But the other part is, once we get these bids in over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing scope reviews with all the rest of the contractors. And we're going to start to establish this GMP. And I'm trying to get my deadline is, or my time frame is somewhere about starting the second week of February and being done around the middle of March, trying to get this GMP established. So again, these 4 critical contractors, we want to get a go-ahead sooner. You will know financially where we stand, but I won't have the GMP totally done yet, but we'll kind of have a good idea of where things stand. And then we'll work on this GMP. And then we'll issue the limited notice to proceed to the rest of the contractors. So if we get jammed up with schedule, our next critical contractor that we would need, if we can't get the whole GMP and get through this whole process in order to keep going, would be our HVAC, because they also are long lead. They also impact the structural steel with the support of the rooftop units. So if we can't do this, this is kind of a nice, neat way to approach it. But if it turns out that we're having issues with the GMP, or we think we need to take longer, I'm still going to need to say, all right, well then I need to break out 1 or 2 more trades, because we're going to have this all important MEP coordination. I just switched to the construction schedule. We have this all important item. It's called coordination, above ceiling coordination. So we don't want to jeopardize that start date either. So right now we're looking at getting our bids in. Let's see where things fall. We'll be able to tell with these 4 how we are doing budget wise. And again, that's kind of the overall. And I don't know, Paul, if you want me to mention alternates. I at least wanted to have the discussion. I didn't see it on the agenda. It's up to you, but it does impact who our potential low bidders are, which alternates would be considered by the building committee.
Well, I mean, look, that's really going to be subject to how the bids come in.
Okay.
We only have a few alternates. We didn't go with a whole lot. One of the biggest alternates is removal of the additional classrooms, or a portion of the additional classrooms.
Mhm.
And that's going to be a conversation that's going to be larger than just the municipal building committee. That's going to be a conversation that's going to involve us, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the Board of Education, all kind of in a combined meeting. So I don't know that the alternates, and that's really the big alternate,
Yes.
really has much of play here yet until we see the bids come in.
Right. And then once, usually the process is you decide which alternates are going to be accepted, and they actually get awarded with the contract. So they're not a change order later on. So
Right.
Again, knowing that we've got these dates coming up, we don't want to spring it on everybody with what the alternates, as long as everybody's familiar with them and they're willing to, they know that they're going to need to make a decision sooner rather than later. That's the only other thing I wanted to bring up, was the alternates.
Then it's really going to depend on bids and how they come in. So, all right. So you have anything else, Laurel, on bidding update?
Nope. With that, I would open up to any questions if people have questions or interested in what's happening now, because it's been pretty quiet from your side. So
No, we're just anticipating favorable bids that, you guys in Tech10 did your best, and
Mhm.
that we have a favorable market, and hopefully we can move forward with an award immediately, and not have to sit here and scratch our head and think about, additional funding.
So one
So-
thing I will mention is we're out to bid, and the only bid package we're extremely short on for coverage is elevator. There's like literally 3 people that bid elevators, and for some
Right.
reason, we don't appear to have interest in our elevator. I'm gonna we have a person that's in our office that totally does all our bidding. If we can't get Kone or Otis committed to giving us a bid, I may end up in this addendum 5, deleting the bid package and just putting the elevator under general trade. So I didn't want that to be a surprise to anybody, but if it doesn't look like we're gonna get coverage, I'm just gonna do that switch. So I just
So
want to give
put it
everybody.
under general trades, and Otis or Kone were, and they weren't interested to begin with. The general trades contractor then going to have the same issue?
Well, at least they can commit to a price, if we don't have a single bid, then we don't even have a number. At least if we put it under the general trades, we have a complete package, a priced package. I'll think about it some more. This just came up like yesterday, so.
Okay.
Laurel, we would have to extend that. We would have to extend that bid date, though, don't you think, to give general trades time to try to get some numbers from the elevator contractors?
It's a 2-stop elevator. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that complicated. But for some reason, we're being shunned. So I don't know, maybe we can drum up some interest, but that's the only thing that we're aware of.
I mean, the third option is also don't award the elevator. Successful general trades contractor gives us a price, and we have it out to bid again.
Yeah, I mean, I could just bid it afterwards or something. I don't know. I'll
Right,
figure.
it's not something that's on the critical path at this juncture.
Correct, but it's not that far along, because then Gus is going to be screaming about the shaft size, but
That's all right. Let Gus scream.
that's all I have to report.
All right. Well, thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
I just want to warn everybody, Rob, you'll remember that this is probably going to be one of our last short meetings. After this, they have a tendency to get very lengthy as we discuss the finer points of concrete, steel, and change orders and applications for payment. And so unfortunately, we're probably going to end up with 2-hour plus meetings between here and the end of this project. So everybody have dinner beforehand. I guess that would be my advice. All right. So hearing nothing else, anybody have any members have anything else on the new school project they want to ask questions on of the design team?
Well, I have a question on the sprinkler systems.
Yeah, Bill.
Now, the sprinkler systems that were on the plans, is that what's being bid on? It can't be changed from what was on the plans?
This is Laurel Purcell. That is correct. Whatever's on the bid is what they're supposed to be providing a price for.
Okay, I just did, they didn't seem to use the extended coverage heads in the large areas for some reason. I mean, that would knock down like maybe half of the number of heads and maybe some of the piping in the ceiling, but it didn't seem like they used any of those there.
You're talking about what's in the design?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't know, Brad, if Brad's there, so I don't know if he wants to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at it, Bill. I honestly, off the top of my head, don't recall what we show in the gymnasium, things like that. Extended coverage is pretty standard, so, I can look at it.
appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions for the design team? All right. Hearing none, we're going to move on to the high school locker room update. If everybody remembers, sometime in March, April, the Board of Selectmen had reached out to the NBC to ask if we would undertake with the Board of Education Facilities Committee, the high school locker room renovation project. The NBC accepted, and it kind of got put on the back burner pending budget, COVID-19, and items such as that. However, it was jump-started in December, and the architect did a walkthrough on last Wednesday of the space. So I'm going to turn it over to Eddie Wadowski from Tecton. He's the project manager for them, and he's going to kind of go through some of these items for us.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so start off, we'll, as Paul mentioned, we started off with this, about not quite a year ago. Take you through the existing plans and the conceptual plan that we had prepared at that time. And then as Paul mentioned, he and I were out for a walkthrough this past Wednesday with Brian Hamill from CES and with Dan Caldwell from the town of Brookfield. And we walked through all the spaces and just tried to kind of get a better sense of what the scope really wanted to be. So I want to share with you some photos and some things that we learned that day and take you through the MEP scope of work that CES has developed in response to our walkthrough, and then talk to you a little bit about where we go from here. Okay, so existing conditions. This is the boys' locker room as it is now. So you see the PE lockers at the bottom side of the plan, the weight training room on the right, team area up towards the top of the plan with large multi-user open shower room area that really splits the space in half. A couple of storage rooms, one coach's office in the center in between the PE locker area and the team locker area. The area between office and weight training you see without titles. Generally speaking, a lot of that is really unused space. There are some toilets in there, but a lot of that space has been either repurposed for storage or blocked off. And then at the top of the plan, you do see a small toilet room that's used both by the team locker room area and then also for people who are attending outdoor events, whether they're participating in outdoor sports or they're spectators. So the plan we developed, one of the things we understood was that there's a problem not having the team locker room separated from the PE locker room. So just a simple door in between the two to create two different spaces. Relocated the shower room area, you can see towards the upper right of the plan, to be able to really get a large team locker room area to where you could actually have team meetings in a wide open space and for staff to have visual supervision of everything. Creation of a second toilet room up at the top of the plan for use for, as I mentioned, for outdoor events, some subdivision of the storage areas, and a big piece here of weight training to take over some of the unused space to create a cardio area for exercise bikes and treadmills, to be the weight training space, and then to create a few more offices for coaches inside. So that's the plan as of March of last year. So go into what we found. So one of the interesting things we had heard about that the lockers themselves were in pretty terrible condition, and we did see that in one area, which I will show you. But generally speaking, most of the lockers really actually seem to be in pretty good shape. What you're seeing here, this is the PE end of the space. So here at the bottom part of the plan. We need to make sure that the 3-tier lockers are acceptable, that the size works for everybody. And certainly there would still need to be some amount of repairs and refurbishing to a few select units, obviously. But generally speaking, the lockers looked like they were in good shape and certainly had plenty of serviceable life to them. We would certainly still need to do new finishes and provide some accessible elements in the space. So as I mentioned, in the team locker area, basically the side that's on the left of the plan, the lockers at the perimeter of the space are the ones you see in the left photo, and those are the ones that are really in very poor condition. There you can see doors not closing properly, rust spots, definitely some mechanical issues. So those all would need to be replaced. But the ones in the center of that space and the ones that are on the right side, I don't know if you can see my cursor, yeah, on the right side of the space, those actually were all, again, in good condition. And as the space would be reconfigured, we would propose to reuse all of those lockers. Okay, a couple of things for the coaches' offices. As I mentioned, we were trying to create the separation between the PE and the team locker rooms. There is an existing door frame, so we figured we would just use that for creating the new doorway. It's in a little bit different location than we showed it. There's also, you can see on the front of the existing coach's office, there's full height, or rather floor to around typical ceiling height of glass that we would be able to reuse and modify that, as opposed to having the new windows there. Also, the plan that we had before showed the shower room, the shower in the coach's office being taken away, but as we understand, it actually is needed for referee use. So we did need to find a spot for that. So show you really quickly just the previous plan on the left and the new currently proposed plan on the right, showing the sink being relocated to the opposite corner in the coach's office, and the creation of a new accessible shower, really taking advantage of that dead triangular space. Seemed like a good way to be able to get the shower without sacrificing space on the office. You see we lost a few lockers here at the front, trying to make sure that we didn't block the windows. But by using the 3-tier instead of the 2-tier, we'll still be fine in terms of count overall for lockers. For the exterior use, we did see that the vestibule as it is looks like it's really in a condition where we can use it for functionality the way we want to. We want to replicate that on the other side. The other thing is that we were showing only 2 plumbing fixtures in each of the toilets. It seems that 3 is more appropriate. So you can see, again, the previous plan up at the top, the new plan on the bottom. We're adding a 3rd fixture in each stall, in each room, excuse me. Taking up a little bit of the storage room here, but we still feel like there's plenty of storage. And it looked like the showers were a little bit oversized in the previous plan, so we've reduced them in size, and we've snuck in a 6th shower instead of the 5 we had before. One good thing that we did find, and this is for the expansion of the weight room to create the cardio. You can see it looks like there's a structural beam at the second, or basically the midway point in the space that goes all the way across the room. And so you can see these 2 lines here on the bay that we would propose to open up to create that cardio space, and it extends here as well. So we need to confirm this, but it seems pretty logical that this is a load-bearing piece that's supporting the weight of the concrete block up above. And if that is the case, then all we would really need to do would be to take the concrete block below and not have to put in a new structural support. So which should certainly reduce the complexity of work required to make this expansion happen. Okay, and last piece, we had been accounting for new ceilings in the space, but as we looked at it, we thought it might be nice to maintain. There's quite a few existing skylights, bringing natural light into the space. And also knowing that boys like to throw things, that not having a suspended ceiling might be a little bit better in terms of preventing potential future damage. So there's some options we could take a look at in terms of either spray insulation or surface mounted acoustical panels if acoustics were an issue in the space. But it is a locker room, and it's going to be noisy kind of no matter what you do. All right, so from an MEP standpoint, fire protection and fire alarm, we're in good shape where all the infrastructure is there, really just in terms of moving around heads and devices to accommodate for the new layout. For the plumbing, new fixtures, new cold and hot water piping throughout, reuse of existing sanitary and venting piping as much as we can. And we'd propose to do all new mechanical systems, new rooftop units that would serve the entire renovated area, as well as the cardio and weight training areas. And then all new lighting throughout. So LED lighting, lighting controls, emergency lighting. So as far as next steps, as was said, the last time we prepared an estimate of construction cost was in March of 2020. And we obviously need to update that. You know, bidding conditions are a little bit different these days, as well as we want to capture the revised scope of work that resulted from our field visit. There are some incremental costs for some of the additional plumbing fixtures in the coach's office and the toilet rooms. But as I mentioned, we're expecting to see some savings with the reduced scope for lockers, for ceilings, and for structural work. And previously we had talked about the work potentially being phased, with some of it taking place this coming summer and some of it maybe taking place next summer. And we'll continue to kind of refine that and determine what the best schedule is moving forward, whether we still want to do that. And if we do break it down, what areas would be done and when. And that is all I have. So happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Actually, I have questions for Paul and Colette. It's been quite some time since I've been involved with the facilities of the high school. Was the air circulation ever resolved for the music rooms, which are directly at the choir rooms, choral rooms, wherever they are, directly across from the weight room? I remember at one time that was a significant issue.
I kind of remember that issue as well, Rob. I don't have the answer to your question. I do know that Dan Caldwell is fairly well on top of things, but I think we should put that question out to him. And I know where you're going with this.
It would be cost effective to do both at the same time if those areas require some type of upgrade to the air circulation systems.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we should ask Dan Caldwell that question and find out from him. On the same note,
Paul, just to say, my understanding was that was taken care of when they did the most recent round of capital plans with that. I know Rosa is on here as well. She might be able to respond to that.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize Rosa was here.
I'm looking at the capital plan now. I'm just trying to see. I know there's a roof and rooftop AC unit that's on the plan right now. I don't know if but that's not what you're talking about. I don't think.
No, I'm talking about the whole connector. It would have been in last year's
abandoned choral room
for this year.
And last year's, I'll have to check. I can check for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was abandoned choral room issue. And those were both interior spaces, and the unit ventilator that served those spaces didn't function properly from the time that it was put in during the last renovation.
Yeah, I remember that was an ongoing problem, and I don't recall if that had ever been resolved subsequently or not. So, but I'd like to give that some attention at the same time if it's cost effective to look at both systems and try to tie it into one project rather than trying to get a separate upgrade past voters for, or for budgeting purposes.
No, I fully understand and fully agree. Given the proximity of the two areas, it would make perfect sense. Eddie, I'm assuming that given that you guys just walked through the space on Wednesday, that you haven't given this presentation yet to the facilities subcommittee?
That's correct. We have not yet.
if you can schedule with Joy Greenstein to give this presentation and let us know, the NBC members know when that will happen, because I think it would be helpful for both the NBC and the facility subcommittee to kind of discuss this, together to refine the scope, ask the questions about 2-tier lockers versus 3-tier lockers. My recollection is the same as yours, Eddie, is that we were, told that the boys' locker room was in dire shape and that these lockers were in, really did need to be replaced. And during the walkthrough, I didn't observe that. I thought the same thing you did, that the 3-tier lockers were actually in pretty good shape. But there may be a programmatic reason as to why they wanted to go from 3-tier to 2-tier. And I think this all needs to be vetted out with the Board of Ed's facilities subcommittee first.
Hey, so what are your thoughts of those showers?
What showers?
The,
Exactly.
yeah, the existing shower appears to have been turned into a storage facility for.
I was going to say this, the storage.
Yeah.
storage
Years.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a big storage room for, I think they've got the outdoor pitching mound and some mats and nets. And
Yeah, I had done a tour with Dan Caldwell a couple of months ago now.
Okay.
No.
I mean, honestly, I think the
I'd like
most
to follow up
exciting
on
part
this.
of this project is accessible toilet rooms from the outside. So we can do away with the porta sands during public events.
Yeah. But I would be willing to, make myself available to follow up with this.
I think it probably would be helpful, after we discuss this with the facility subcommittee, for both the membership of the NBC and the BOE, to kind of do a walk through the space together on a Saturday morning.
I agree completely, because it's one thing to see the photos, but it's not until you go in there and recognize the scope of everything that's necessary that it becomes apparent.
So Rosa, could we get an invitation to the next facility subcommittee meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of being members of the public, be invited guests, so we can actually have a discussion. And at that point, we can pick a Saturday, Colette, with them to walk through the space.
Sure.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I will touch base with Dan to find out whether things happened with those coral rooms, and I will also reach out to Joy and see about getting a meeting set up for the facilities subcommittee. And I'll send the invite to the NBC as well. Let them know when that's going to be.
Eddie, thank you very much.
No problem. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so hearing none, we're going to move on to.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Correspondence, we did, it was in everybody's packet. We received a letter from David Peen and Elizabeth Fleming. Hopefully I'm pronouncing their names correctly, from 6 Hollow Oak Road. They had some concerns regarding the stormwater and the stormwater runoff. I did forward that letter to the first selectman to ask to have him ask land use if they would respond. As the NBC, we're really kind of an owner's representative here. We didn't do the design. We don't give any approvals. We simply are a facilitator of the process. I thought it was more appropriate for our land use department to respond, since they were the ones who granted the approvals for both zoning, planning, and wetlands. Anybody else on the NBC membership have any other feedback for that?
It was my understanding that the Inland Wetlands Committee really were very thorough in doing their, follow-up on this. So I'm unsure as to how this was not thoroughly, thought through.
Oh, I don't think that's the contention. I think, they raised some points in their letter and they were just looking for a response. And we thought the best people to respond would be our land use department, as they are the ones who who review the applications and grant approvals.
No, I'm just saying that I was under the impression that inland wetlands really did their due diligence to make sure that this wouldn't be a problem. And are the residents of 6 Hollywood aware of everything that inland wetlands put into, their research and their work for this project? Because their concerns may be answered by them already, and they just aren't aware that it's been researched.
Oh, that was the question originally came to Dr. Burrill, and that was sort of our first go at the response, which was to access the plans at town hall, to review the minutes and everything that's online to see what went into wetlands decisions on their approvals and what were their comments along the way in their minutes. Again, it's quite arduous, and I think our land use would be able to provide a suitable and articulate answer for those concerns. Anything else in correspondence, Catherine? Okay.
No.
All right, so hearing none, we'll move on to invoices. Mr. Butkus, you're up again. Jack?
It's that
No
mute button.
invoices.
That mute button again. All right, invoices are a pretty compact list this week. We have invoice for Robinson and Cole for legal services. This was the final touches on O&G's contract and getting that out the door. That's kind of been sitting for a bit, $133. We have 2 invoices from Arcadis, our normal $20,000 per month, and a $13,000 invoice for the threshold review, the independent structural review that was required by building code. That was a pass-through, no markup on that. We have Tecton's invoice for $187,578.28, and pre-construction services from O&G for $15,384.62. Grand total presented tonight is $236,095.90, and we ask your approval. Does anyone wish to look at the individual invoices? I can go through item by item.
No, I think, as far as Tectons, we went through, everything was in the packet we went through. That brings them to 100% construction documents. I don't believe they were billing anything for bidding at this point, which we're almost through the bid phase. Robinson and Cole, like you said, it was the last piece to the finishing touches on O&G's contract. And Arcadis is the peer structural review. It was either that or wait for our building department to review, but they would accept the structure. Was the structural for our building department, or was that for the state?
No, this is required by the building code. Because it's considered a threshold building based on certain criteria, it has to have basically a peer review by an independent structural engineer.
Right, so that was the state requirement.
Yeah, and you are correct. There's 0% being charged so far for bidding and negotiation phase by Tecton, with just up to 100% CDs.
Right. All right. Anybody have any comments or want to make a motion?
Yeah, you want to scroll back so I can make the motion? I'm going to move that the invoices in the total amount of $236,095.90 be approved as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the invoices as presented? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstained? All right, so moved.
Thank you very much.
All right. Anybody have any new business? All right, hearing none, let's move on. Item number 8, public comment. We will receive public comment.
We do have David Keene and Liz Fleming on. I don't know if you're wanting to speak or just listen.
Hi, David Keene here.
Hi, David, how are you?
Hi. No, I don't want to interrupt, but I heard your comment about the letter and that you're going to forward it on to land use. Look, we just want to be assured that there won't be any increase in stormwater to our properties at Hollow Oak, because we currently have a problem. There's an existing issue there. And the storm runoff that was in the drainage reports seemed to be good up to a 25-year storm, but over that, there seemed to be an increase. And that was a concern. And well, I've highlighted in the report, right, there were 3 items that if I would expect that it'd be a design response if somebody's going to respond to us. Maybe the civil engineers that put together the drainage report. That was a question.
Okay. Again, what we addressed previously about forwarding it on to the first selectman for land use to reply. My email to the first selectman said that the design team would be available if additional information by land use was necessary for the reply. And David, look, I do know you're a PE. I'll give you the,
just structural, not.
No, I realize that.
I'm not going to pretend to know anything about water.
You and me both. I'll stay away from that. But we did, as the courtesy and the right thing to do was to forward it on, have a suitable reply to your questions and to your letter done by the body who's responsible within the town. I hope that's appropriate. I hope you find the reply appropriate. And if not, we can continue to have additional discussion after that.
No, I appreciate that. That's fine. Thank you.
No, you're quite welcome. Thank you for being a gentleman.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you so much. You're going to be living it for the next 1.5 years in your backyard.
I'm realizing that.
All right. Anybody else for public comment? All right, hearing none. The next regularly scheduled meeting is February 16th. Laurel, I know that you have a schedule which probably is going to require a special meeting.
Yes.
On or about now with 2 weeks before, so that would be February 2nd. Would you be prepared for February 2nd?
I thought we were going to try to shoot for the 8th or the 9th.
Okay, I just don't want to have meetings too close together. Because if we have one on the 8th or 9th, and then we have another one on the 16th.
I would be able to report out how things have come in, but I won't have settled anything on the 2nd.
Okay.
Well, Paul, if the 9th is a more appropriate date for that, we can have other aspects of our usual monthly reporting cycle ready for the 9th instead of the 16th.
Well, when it's a special meeting, we have to keep specifically to the items on the agenda.
Yes.
So, that would be my only concern. If there are other items that come up that we need to discuss, we would be unable to do that.
Yeah, the only items of discussion for this 8th or 9th meeting would be the approval of these 4 bid packages.
Yeah, that sounds like that could be a brief meeting.
Okay. Well, hopefully, because we should be able to have an overall idea on where the financials stand.
Yes. Yep.
At that juncture.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So if everybody would keep the 9th open which would be that the Tuesday before. And hopefully we can convene at that point. And, Laura, I'll wait to hear from you that it's a go, if everything's
Yep.
falling into place. And then, we'll send out a notification, Catherine, to and file an agenda for the 9th. And, Rob and Jack, to your point, yeah, we probably could put our entire agenda together for that as a special meeting. That may be okay.
We can play it by ear.
Exactly. All right, anybody have anything else? All right, being there no other business, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
All
Good
right,
night.
everyone.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Have a good night.
Everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Night.
One last Happy New Year for Colette.
There you go. Absolutely.
Take care.